Good. Good to have you. A lot to get through this morning. There's a new CNN ORC poll. You are aware of it. Other than you're surprised that you don't have more than 32% of the vote, how do you explain these numbers? What do they mean to you?
Well, I think they mean that people are tired of politicians that make deals like the deal we just made with Iran, which is one of the worst negotiated transactions I've ever seen in my life. And I'm not just talking about deals between countries. I'm talking about any kind of a contract. It's one of the worst deals I've ever seen. It's the most one-sided, lopsided disgrace, and how it goes through is unbelievable, and we should not give the money. There are ways that we can get out of giving the money. I heard some legal maneuvers that they should play, because to give them $150 billion and they go around saying that Israel won't be here in 25 years and we're not going to deal with the United States after this great deal that we just made is signed, that we won't have anything to do with the United States. And by the way, the people that were negotiating that deal with us, other countries, they're going to benefit. You look at what they're doing. They're all over in Iran right now. They're going to be splitting up all the money and taking a lot of that money out that we're giving. So I think people are tired of that. They're tired of Sergeant Bergdahl, where we get Bergdahl a traitor and they get 5 killers that they've wanted for 10 years. They're tired of trade deals with China and with Japan, and they're tired. And they know that won't happen with me, and it's not going to happen with me.
But that winds up being the test.
We'll turn the tables completely.
That winds up being the test. Are you right that people are tired? Obviously, every poll you're in proves that. Not to say that you are a protest candidate, because in our recent poll, CNN poll says why they vote for you. 71% say they like your positions on issues, not because they just don't like everybody else. So you are right about what people say they want within the GOP and independent voters, as proved out in the most recent CNN poll. Now the next level of analysis is, can you deliver on what you say? Because what you say sounds good. The Iran deal is the worst deal of all time. A growing number of people who are studying the deal don't agree with you. The global community doesn't agree with you. Iran does not agree with you. They didn't want to give up their plutonium abilities. They didn't want to give up their timelines. They didn't want to have to reduce their stores the way they did, but they had to give up things to get what they wanted. Colin Powell, a man who I would think you respect, says, we have to do the Iran deal. There is no better alternative. They were on a super highway to getting a weapon. Sounds good to say the deal sucks. Sounds good to say you'll do better because you do deals. But can you deliver on that when, as you just said, the Ayatollah says he ain't talking to you anymore?
Okay, well, let me just tell you that in terms of the deal itself, just look at aspects of the deal. 24-day inspection period. Ridiculous. And by the way, before you get to the 24 days, Chris.
But you have none now.
Chris, let me finish talking.
Please,
okay?
go ahead.
You just went. I mean, what, are you making a statement or asking me?
No. Go, I'm trying to give context to the situation.
24-day period. And before you get to the 24 days, the clock doesn't start ticking for a long time. It's a whole process. So, number one, in terms of inspections. Number two, they do their own inspections in certain very important cases. So they're going to self-inspect. Anybody that trusts Iran to self-inspect is not such a smart person. You look at the prisoners. Why didn't we get our prisoners back? A little thing very important, just the psychology of it. They kept 4 prisoners. Why wouldn't we get them back? You look at all of the different elements of this deal. Why are we giving them $150 billion? Then take a look at the fact they're fighting us in Yemen, right? They're fighting us all over the place. They're terrorizing everybody. They're going in and they're taking over Iraq. I hope you know that. I told you that was going to happen in 2003 when you were actually at another network doing very well. But I said that was going to happen in 2003. I said the worst thing you can do is go and attack Iraq, because you're going to destabilize the Middle East, because you had these 2 powerful cogs. They were almost the same. Well, we destroyed one of the cogs. Well, guess what? Iran and ISIS are getting the oil, and Iran is taking over Iraq. As you're sitting there right now, they're meeting, and with all the money we spent in the last $2 trillion, thousands of lives, and all the wounded warriors who I love all over the place, Iran is now taking over Iraq.
Well,
and the oil. By the way, Iraq has the 2nd largest oil reserves in the world. They're taking over Iraq, and they're taking over the oil. And what do we get out of it? And you know who one of the biggest beneficiaries of Iraqi oil is? China. China is getting the oil. And you know who the biggest beneficiary in, if you look at Afghanistan, which is very rich in minerals? China. We're on one side of a mountain fighting in Afghanistan. China's got its excavators on the other side of the mountain.
Mr. Trump, you make a very interesting point there.
So
you look at China.
That's why when people ask about, gee, I wonder Trump's poll numbers are skyrocketing. That's why. That's not going to happen if I'm running things, Chris.
But the question is, well, why,
you know
why won't it happen?
Like
China stays China. Russia stays Russia. India stays India. They all want to do business with Iran. They were not in favor of more sanctions. The same with many of your European
That's called
partners.
Leadership, Chris. If you would have gotten
But what does that mean, leadership? If they say we're not going to do it, what do you say?
You would have been able to make a real deal. I'm all for a deal, just so you understand, because I understand the power of nuclear. I had an uncle who was a professor at MIT. He fully understood. He used to tell me things that are incredible, and that was a long time ago. I'm all for a deal, but you got to make a good deal. You can't make a bad deal. And we were begging for this deal. We looked like a bunch of beggars. We were begging for this deal.
You also say in an op-ed that many are celebrating as being very well-reasoned about the Iran deal, and there's some thoughtful items in that. People should read it. But you push very hard on the fact that I get those 4 people. As soon as I'm president, I'm getting back those 4 hostages. You must know that they are and were trying very hard to get the hostages back.
I don't believe they were trying very hard. I don't think it was.
Let's take them at their word, because we don't have any proof to the contrary.
Chris, when they asked Kerry about the hostages, he said we didn't want to discuss the hostages because we didn't want to complicate the negotiation. How ridiculous is that? But he made that statement. And Obama, your friend over at CBS, made the same statement. He said we didn't want to complicate the negotiations. Now, what's the big deal? First of all, the first day, the first hour, the first minute, the first question should have been hostages. We want our hostages back.
But would you have scrapped the whole deal over that? Would you have scrapped the whole deal? Would you have left the table?
Oh, initially, absolutely, because that would have shown what happened. When you didn't get the hostages back, that set a bad table. You know, you call the deal is like setting a table. That set the table incorrectly. What you do is you go in and you could convince them. By the way, the right messenger would have said, hey, look, you don't need them, you don't want them, nobody cares about them over at Iran. Over here it would send a great signal. If we got our hostages back, I think you could probably end up making a deal.
I'm just saying we have every reason to believe from the people who are at the table that they said that.
You would have gotten the hostages back.
I'm saying everybody
said he didn't want to even talk about the hostages.
No, we know
because he didn't want to. He didn't want to complicate the negotiations.
I understand what you're saying, but I think it's a little different than that. I think that it was a topic of conversation. They didn't want to balance the entire deal on the hostages.
They didn't read the art of the deal. They never will. The Iranians are great negotiators. The Persians have always been great negotiators. They're laughing in Iran right now at how stupid we are.
Let's move on to a different topic. Ben Carson, he's also making a lot of traction. He's feeling good about himself enough that he's coming at you. He is a man of faith. Everybody knows that. It's a cornerstone of his existence and certainly his motivation to run.
Well, I don't know that. I mean, I hadn't heard that. You know, I've known Ben Carson of him for a long time. I never heard faith was a big thing until just recently.
He's a Seventh-day Adventist.
Running.
I mean, it's
know
something he talks about a lot.
Carson's faith. And all of a sudden, he becomes this great religious figure. I don't think he's a great religious figure. And I saw him yesterday quoting something, and he was quoting on humility, and it looked like he had just memorized it about 2 minutes before he made the quote. So, you know, don't tell me about Ben Carson.
Well, but Ben Carson's coming at you, too. He says...
He's starting to hit me, so I hit back. I only hit back when I get hit. I'm a great counterpuncher.
Let me ask you...
But Ben Carson, you're talking about his faith. Excuse me, Chris.
Please.
Go back and look at his past. Go back and look at his views on abortion and see where he stands. You talk about abortion. I mean, go back and look at his views on abortion. Where now all of a sudden he gets on very low key. I mean, frankly, he makes Bush look like the Energizer Bunny. He's very low key. He's got a lot of donors, a lot of people pushing him. But Ben Carson, you look at his faith, and I think you're not going to find so much. And you look at his views on abortion, which were horrendous. And that's, I think, why I'm leading with all of the evangelicals. I'm, as you know in your poll, number one, I'm leading Ben Carson by a lot. You know, you said, oh, Ben Carson's surging. Well, I'm almost double his numbers.
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
You know,
but I'm saying he came out of nowhere is all I'm saying. He's not a big celebrity. You know, people didn't know about him. He doesn't get anywhere near the attention that you get.
Chris, I only bring it up because I saw him hitting me yesterday. He's questioning my faith.
Let me ask you something. He definitely is questioning your faith.
A great believer in the Bible.
He's definitely questioning your faith.
Hey, Chris, who is he to question my faith when I am, you know, I mean, he doesn't even know me. I've met him a few times, but I don't know Ben Carson. He was a doctor perhaps an okay doctor, by the way. You can check that out, too. We're not talking about a great... He was an okay doctor.
I don't know about okay doctor. You know, he was the first man to separate conjoined twins.
Because he's a doctor and he hired one nurse, he's going to end up being the president of the United States. But for him to criticize me on my faith is absolutely... And for him to read from the Bible... In his memory, it looked like he memorized it about 2 minutes before he went on stage.
Do you think you're more a man of faith than he is?
Ben Carson is not going to be your next president. That I can tell you.
You think you're more a man of faith than Ben Carson is?
I would say I can't quote him. I can only say I am a man of faith. I don't know enough about Ben Carson. But if you look at his past, which I've done, he wasn't a big man of faith. All of a sudden, he's become this man of faith, and he was heavy into the world of abortion. And he was a doctor, and take a look at the hospitals where he worked. He was a doctor. Check out the past and see. All of a sudden, he's totally, he's totally anti-abortion. Well, if you look back, you will find he's a very much different Ben Carson. Now, one other thing.
Please.
He shouldn't be questioning my faith. Because, number one, I'm leading with the evangelicals. I'm Protestant. I'm Presbyterian. I have great relationships with the people of Iowa, with New Hampshire, with South Carolina. And he shouldn't be questioning my faith. You know why? Because he knows nothing about me. I met him a couple of times.
All right, so maybe you guys should get together. Let's move on to another topic. You had a there he goes again moment. First it was Rosie, then it was Megyn. Now you got Carly Fiorina. They got you in Rolling Stone magazine making fun of the way she looks. Why do you talk about how women look so much? You know it's not presidential. It's probably not even kind.
I'm talking about persona. Look, here's another one.
You said look at that face.
Carson and Carly.
You said look at that face.
I'll say some nice things about you at least, so that they'll say at least he says nice things about some people.
I'll take it.
The fact is that Carly Fiorina has had a terrible past. She was fired viciously from Hewlett-Packard. The dean of the Yale Business School, who's a highly respected man, Jeffrey Sonnenfeld, wrote a paper that was one of the worst papers on CEOs. She goes down as one of the worst ever. The company practically created.
But then say that.
Excuse me, Chris, wait. Thousands of jobs gone, stock price gone. It still hasn't recovered. It's a total disaster, but still hasn't recovered. They're trying hard, but she was a disaster CEO. She had a company before that called Lucent, which in my opinion and in my memory was even a worse catastrophe than Hewlett-Packard. She then gets fired from Hewlett-Packard. She runs for the Senate against somebody that could have been beaten easily. She loses in a landslide. And now she's running for president. Now, when I said that, and the Rolling Stone article had moments of beauty and greatness, and I did like the pictures, actually. One of the few magazines where I actually liked the pictures. So the photographer was good. The writer actually called me, and he said, I'm so upset. I wrote this great story, and Jan Wenner screwed it up. He told me that. Because they added a lot of stuff, a lot of garish stuff that I think is disgusting.
What I'm saying is this.
Excuse me, wait. So, but Carly... The statement of Carly, I'm talking about her persona. Her persona is not going to be, she is not going to be president.
But I don't know about that.
She had a terrible, failed time.
I don't know about that. I'll tell you why. I hear everything you're saying about the record. They're all legitimate bases for criticism that you can level against one of your opponents, but I'm just reading the quote for what it is. Look at that face. Why would anyone vote for that? Can you imagine that's the face of our next president? I mean, she's a woman. I'm not supposed to say bad things, but really, folks, come on. Are we serious? That's not about persona.
I'm talking persona.
How?
And when she hits me on my hair, I know that's okay, and you won't defend
that's tit
me.
for
Of course,
tat.
my hair is, by the way, I think you know me well enough. It is my hair.
Somebody comes on my air and makes fun of your hair, I'm going to tell them to shut up and move on to something else. If somebody does that to you on my air, and they say the reason he shouldn't be president is because of his hair, look at his hair, I'll say, shut up, let's talk about something else. Because it's unkind and it's unpresidential. You don't have to
defend me. I'm not looking for anybody to defend me. I'm just saying, when she and other people hit me on things, nobody ever comes to my defense. So I'm just saying this.
You come to your defense.
Carly had a terrible time in business. She destroyed a company. You have to get the report from Jeffrey Sonnenfeld of Yale. He's the expert on Carly. It's a disaster. And check out Lucent beforehand. So you have Ben saying what he said. You have Carly saying, these are two people that will not be president.
All I'm saying is that you are the front runner. You say that you're going to be president of the United States. There is a manner of behavior that goes with that. I'm not saying be Mr. PC. I'm not saying be Captain Gentility and let everybody beat you up. But the idea of returning a blow every time you receive one, You know that doesn't work in any high-level situation.
Well, I'm a believer. Perhaps you're not. Maybe that's why your show isn't doing as well as it should be.
Oh,
because
you
you
see,
really
that's
have a
not
better
nice.
show than that. But
That's not nice. That's not nice. You're attacking me for asking you a question. See, that's my point.
Let me just tell you,
that's not what a president does.
When Ben Carson criticizes or questions, he doesn't even know me. You know where I met him? He comes to my club in Palm Beach. Okay? I have a great club, Mar-a-Lago, in Palm Beach. He comes to my club. I hardly know Ben Carson. When he questions my faith, and I'm a believer, big league, in God, in the Bible, and he questions my faith and he doesn't know me, and you say I'm not supposed to hit back? I will hit back.
I don't say you're not supposed to hit back.
I'm saying the evangelicals understand me. First of all, they know I'm going to run the country properly, and I'm not going to let everybody rip us off and take our jobs and take our money. And that's very important to the evangelicals. They are very smart people. And they also know I'm a man of faith. I don't want Ben Carson criticizing my faith. Certainly when he doesn't know me, he can't do that.
I understand that, and that is a legitimate position for you to have. I think the Carly Fiorina situation is something for you to consider a different way, because it seems to keep happening, and I don't get the persona reference. I think it's more about her face, and that's something for you to figure out how you want to put yourself out to the voters. Let me ask you about a couple of more items, though, that we have for you, issues that will be very relevant to you if you're president of the United States. The Kentucky clerk situation. There is a culture war going on in this country. You've had the Supreme Court give the ruling that same-sex marriage is the law of the land. You, of course, know that. She says, I'm not going to do it because it's against my faith. She's a public servant. She was elected to do the job of giving out licenses, not decide who gets them on that basis. What do you think of her?
Well, I think I'd like to see her maybe go. I hated that she went to jail, first of all.
She chose to go, as you know.
I hated that. And now she's out. But I must tell you that, you know, we are a land of laws. I would like to see her get a different job, or at least let the clerks do that particular work. We are, you know, in a position that's been a terrible situation that's taken place out there, and I understand both sides of the argument, and I embrace both sides of the argument. You know, you can embrace both sides of an argument, but it would be really good if she could either stay and let the clerks do that work that she can't do, or, in the alternative, get herself something else where she doesn't come into conflict. And you know, that's the way of handling it. It's something that's going to work its way out, but it is a messy situation, no question about it.
The tone that you've put into the campaign is starting to move through into different candidates. You go after Jeb Bush, you got his commercial where it's like a Sominex commercial. You got him falling asleep. Now he's trying to up his game, it seems, and come at you a little bit. I don't know if you saw what he did on Colbert, but we have a little clip. I want your take on it. Oh, you don't have? Well, anyway, he's making fun of your hair, basically, is what he's doing, which is exactly what you were pointing to earlier on. Did you see it? Did you hear about it? Do you think it was effective? Did you think it was funny?
I thought it was okay. I mean, he was put in a very bad position because he was given these cue cards to read that he didn't know anything about. I actually think he's a nice person, but he's not a natural entertainer, and he was put into a position that was very uncomfortable for him. And I mean, it was something he didn't want to be doing, and, you know, so it was fun, it was fine, and he did fine, but he was put into a position that he really didn't want to be in, and he could have really said, I'd rather not do that, I guess, would have been better. He's probably saying, this stuff will haunt me for the rest of my life, but, you know, it's one of those things. I mean, it's fine.
Do you think, as you continue to stay at the top of the polls, if it stays that way, and you wind up getting into a general against somebody else, do you think you will campaign and deal with opponents the same way? Where every time they say something about you, you go back at them. At some point, do you think you have to shift tone into what is seen as being more presidential?
No, I have to win. I have to win. I have to put this country back. This country is in such trouble. We owe $19 trillion. We're getting ripped off by China, Japan, Mexico, everybody. Mexico, both in trade and at the border. I have to do what I have to do to win. When a Ben Carson makes a phony statement like he made, I'm going to attack him. And if Hillary says something incorrect, look, Hillary was the worst Secretary of State in the history of the United States. I think she will be superseded by John Kerry because this deal that he's making with Iran will take him over the top. I think he's actually going to go down as worse than her. But Hillary did a terrible job. The world blew up around her. Okay? It blew up. I'm going to say that. I'm going to say that. Now, you know, it's sort of interesting because in the polls, and you see, I'm leading with African Americans. I've got the highest poll number in the history of the Republican Party primary things. I have 25%. And I'm also, I think you saw, leading with Hispanics. You know, everybody fell off the chair when they heard that.
You have increased your
the
percentage in
Hispanics.
both of those categories. That's true.
I'm leading with Hispanics, and I'm leading with the African Americans. Well, if that's the case, and if I'm going to get 25% African American, we're going to have a tremendous victory for the Republicans. There's no Republican has ever gotten more than 9 or 10%. And I said I'm going to do great with the African Americans because I'm going to create jobs, and Obama's not creating jobs for them.
Well, I'm
going to create jobs, and I'm going to create wealth for them. So I've been saying this for a long time. So when that poll came out 2 days ago that I'm leading with African Americans and leading with Hispanics, I was the only one that wasn't surprised.
No, that I'm sure is true. Mr. Trump, as always, we appreciate you coming on to explain the situation and your positions. We look forward to you putting more meat on the bones as we go forward in this campaign. Congratulations on the recent poll results. Thank you for coming on New Day.
Thank you very much, Chris.
All right, you be